Hi everyone. Good afternoon or good evening, wherever you are. Can everyone hear me, please? Hello? Okay, thank you. Please let me know if you can see my screen. I have not started sharing though. Well, can everyone see my screen, please? If you can see my screen, signify. Hello. Not see any activity in the chats. Can everyone still see me? Is it still breaking? Okay. It seems this. Okay, just give me a second, please. I think I might know the cause of. So anytime I switch my network, apparently it breaks. Okay, so I believe everyone can hear me now, loud and clear. Sorry, anytime I switch my network, it breaks because I use two different networks. So I believe everyone can hear me. And also we can see I don't think my screen is sharing again. So I will just share screen. Uh, Okay, so I believe we can all start. Please, if my voice keeps breaking, I would like you to tell me in the comment section. Um, so good day, everyone. Welcome to today's office hours. And as usual, I will be taking your Python question. So for this week, we are covering classes and objects in Python. So basically, it is the object-oriented part of Python, like the OOP concepts. So I believe everyone has seen the resources, has seen the task for this week. So if you have any questions regarding the task, I would like to get them now. Um, it seems there is no question. It seems there is no activity in the comment section. Okay. So is there any question regarding this week's task or the classes and objects, the OOP concept, something you are unclear about? So we can just talk through them. Okay, so what is the problem, please? So you can just state your problem if you have one regarding Python. So I installed VS Code and downloaded the Python extension. But when I run a Python program, it tells me there is no Python found. So have you added Python to paths? So when you click on when you go to your command prompt or your terminal and you type Python, just Python, do you see an error saying Python is not added as an internal, is not recognized as an internal or external command, or you get directed to an interactive shell? So do you get that? Like, do you get the error message or you get redirected back to an interactive shell? If you are getting an error message saying Python is not recognized as an internal or external command, you just need to add Python to paths or environment variables. So I think during the first ever office hours we had, I okay, you get redirected to 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 an interactive shell. Okay, so I think I don't wait. I don't think I've ever had an issue like that with VS Code. Give me a second to check. I believe you can see my did you install Python from the Microsoft store? in your VS Code. So if you can see mine, let me stop sharing to make sure everyone can see my, give me a second. Okay. So if you can see my screen, there is, I Googled this. So this is Stack Overflow. This is something every developer should know how to use. So this is Stack Overflow, yeah, and I Googled the error that you might be having since I don't know exactly what error it is. So I would advise you to send a screenshot of that to my DM on Slack. If you can do so now, I'll be happy. So you can just I'm checking this now, and the answer I am getting is similar to what I said earlier. So it says that you don't have the command Python installed into your parts on Windows, which is the default. If you didn't get your copy of Python from the Windows store, if you selected your Python interpreter in VS Code, then I will disable Code Runner. That way, the Python extension is workload the ability, blah, blah, blah. So let me just copy this link and paste it here. So you go through it. I'll go through it later, and but it is an issue with your parts. You just have to add the environment variables to part, like I said earlier on. Then it should work. But we will go through this later. Let me take other, because I'm having other questions. So go through this link and see if you can fix it yourself. Then if you cannot, then I would look into it. But go through this link and see if you can fix this. Okay, so another question says a particular question was wrong. I think I brought this to the Slack channel on Sunday because someone brought my attention to it and I checked. So I think it was week 3 task number 6 or so, and there was double code. So there was an error in typing out the question. So, and I said that it is supposed to be just a single quotation mark, not double quotation mark, like 2 quotation marks. So yeah, I think I raised that in the Slack channel already. Explain more about instances. Okay, I will explain about instances in a second. Let me just see other questions here. So can you go over creating class and instance attributes of a class? Yes, I would. Like I said, I would go over it now. Can we use another software? Okay, besides, because there might be some of your colleagues too that probably have the same issues. And that is why, as opposed to coming to my DM, by most people that come to my DM, I answer them, although it might be an hour or some few hours late because of the time I see the messages. But as opposed to coming to my DM to ask a question, I would advise you to paste it on the channels for Python itself, because that way you get help. And I see it faster when it is you are posting it on the channel and tagging me. So if you post it on the channel and you tag me, I would definitely see it and I would respond. But in the off chance that I do not respond immediately, or I do not respond, you most likely will get help from other mentors or other of your colleagues too that have had same issues. So I would advise most times to paste your errors on the Slack channel. That way everyone sees it. People that would like to render help to you would render help to you, and people that will also learn from the error that you're having so that they don't go get that error. They would also be able to benefit. So please try to limit as much DM messages as you can if you can space it on the Slack channel so that everyone can also learn and you can also get help from others. Okay, so someone said, can we use another software? Can we use another software? Yes, you can. I think I've answered this question a quadrillion times. Yes, you can. As long as it runs Python, you can work with another software. You can use PyCharm. You can use Jupyter, whatever. As long as it runs Python, it's fine. I'm not constrained to a certain code editor or compiler or something like that. Okay, so I will be going over OOPs now. So I'll be going over classes and objects. But it looks like you don't have. So I'll just be going over like an overview of what classes. So object-oriented, can Visual Studio be installed on Android? No, not that I know of. I don't think there's any Visual Studio code for Android. I don't know. You can check. You can find that. Find out. I honestly don't know if there's Visual Studio code for Android. There should be but I don't know. You can check. You can check on Play Store, and for those on Apple, you can check on App Store. Okay, so object-oriented programming. What is OOP in general? Let's start with that, because now before you understand classes and objects in Python, you should actually understand the basics of object-oriented programming. So object-oriented programming is a style of programming that focuses on using objects to design and build applications. So we have different type of programming style. We have procedural programming or procedure-oriented programming. So that is it involves building blocks of statements to manipulate data. We also have OP that organizes the program to combine data and functionality and wraps it inside something called an object. So in OOPs, we mostly use objects. Yeah, so think of OOP as this. Think of object-oriented. Let's use a real-world scenario. Yeah, because in OOP, the two main concepts or the two main things you would most likely be hearing most of the time would be objects and classes. So think of a class as a blueprint. In fact, most of the class definition you most likely will see out there is the same thing, blueprint. So a class is a blueprint. Now, think of it as a drawing. So let's say a builder wants to build a house, or someone wants to build a new house. They don't just go out there to start putting blocks of cement and sand together. No, an architect first needs to lay out the plans for the house. So something like a pictorial image of that house will be put on paper. So like a drawing of how the house would be, a model. Now think of a class as that model. And that model is used to actually build the house. So you can think of the class as the blueprint, the model, the drawing, and you can think of an object as the actual item, like the actual house itself. So an object represents a real world entity, and the basic. Sorry, can everyone hear me? Okay, someone said there is. Okay, so there's Visual Studio Code on Android. Can everyone hear me, please? So it doesn't look as if I've been explaining and no one is hearing me. Hello? Okay, so since there is no activity in the chat. Okay, awesome. Okay, since everyone can hear me. Okay, so like I said, an object represents a real world entity, and it is the basic building block of object-oriented programming. So you can think of this as an example. An online shopping system will have objects such as a cart, a shopping cart, a customer, a product item, things like that. So you can think of an object as that. Then you can think of the class as the prototype for an object, a blueprint. Now, you most likely would hear things like instantiation of a class. Yeah. So when you instantiate a class, it means you are creating an object, because an object is an instance of a class. So you use the class to build the objects, because the class is just the blueprint, it's just the prototype. So it is from the class that the object is modeled. So an instance is an individual object of a certain class. An instantiation means the creation of an instance of a class. So take note of these things. So a class is a blueprint. An object represents a real-world entity in OOP. And we use a class to model an object. So we can have a class vehicle, and we could use it to build different type of cars. So things like that. So I'm just going to explain some other concepts in OOP so everyone can. So there are some key or forming components or forming principles of object-oriented programming. But before I go into the 4 principles, I would explain that classes have, or objects have, behaviors and attributes. So the behavior of an object is the method of a class. So a method is often associated with the behavior of that object. So in a class, we have methods. Yeah. So methods are just functions in a class that achieve a certain, a specific, that carry out a specific task. So a method is just a function in a class. So the narrative for a function in a class is a method. So a method is the attribute of that object. An object is the behavior rather of that object. An object also have attributes. So just take notes of that. Now, the 4 principles of object-oriented programming are encapsulation, abstraction, inheritance, and polymorphism. I wish I made a slide for this, but you can just you can read it up They are linked. So okay, there is a question. Okay, so I would last week I forgot about I said I was going to send the decorator link to the channel. I totally forgot. Someone sent me a DM to ask for it. Only one person did. And I think I sent it to him. Yeah, I sent it to him, but then again I forgot afterwards. So, but this you can actually just read up on OOP concepts itself. So I'm just explaining this so that everyone will have an idea of OOP, because OOP is actually a very broad programming concept that everyone should know, every programmer should know. So there are four principles of object-oriented programming. I said we have encapsulation, we have inheritance, we have abstraction, and we have polymorphism. Encapsulation, okay, let's start from inheritance. I think that is like the easiest and the most commonly used component. So inheritance is the mechanism of creating new classes from existing ones. So inheritance is like, think of it like this: a father and a son. A son will most likely inherit attributes or traits of the father, whether he wants to or not. It is a given, it is nature. So inheritance works the same way too. We are creating a class from another, we are inheriting the properties of a class rather. We are inheriting the properties of a class from another class. So the class, the parent class, is called the base class, while the child class is called the super class? Yeah, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just Google that quickly. I think, yeah, the super class. So that is just it about inheritance. Now, abstraction. Abstraction is giving the user or showing the user all what they need to see. So you are hiding all the data except the relevant data about an object, so that the complexity of a system can be reduced. Someone said comment is part of the four principles. No, there are four main comments of a class. I don't understand. I don't think, no. So in OOP, there are just four. There are just four. Are you sure you are checking OOP? You are Googling on. So there are just four. Those four components: inheritance, encapsulation, polymorphism, and abstraction. So, like I said, abstraction is hiding all but the relevant data. So you're only showing what the user needs to see, or what anyone needs to see about an object, just so that you can hide the complexity of the system. So like a car, you don't know the wirings. You don't see the wirings, because that is not your business. You just want to drive a car for a basic end-to-end user. If I'm building a car, yeah, I don't need to show the person that just wants to drive around the wirings and things like that. No, but just the things they need: the steering, the gear, the accelerometer, things like that. So like abstraction, you are hiding all but the relevant data about an object. So you are only giving them what they need to see. Because in a large system, objects talk to each other. If you are building a large object-oriented system, object talks to each other. So it makes it difficult to maintain a large code base, and that is where abstraction comes in. So by abstracting, you are hiding some internal implementations of some objects and only revealing operations that are relevant to other objects. So that is abstraction. Inheritance, yeah, inheriting the properties of a class into another class. Abstraction, you are only giving the user what they need to see. Now, encapsulation is a bit like, I like to think is a bit like abstraction, but they have a difference. So encapsulation is hiding the data itself from there. So you're hiding the properties of that object. You don't want anybody to get an access, just any object to get an access to that object. So encapsulation is achieved when each object keeps its state private, so that other objects don't have direct access to its state. So in encapsulation, you are keeping the whole object private, so that other object does not have access to its properties, its method, and things like that. Instead, they can only access the state only through a set of public functions. So the thing is, at this stage right now, you probably would only be seeing inheritance into play. So it is when you go deeper that you see encapsulation, abstraction, and polymorphism. Okay, I've not explained polymorphism. So polymorphism is just the ability of an object to take many forms. So to morph normally in English means like to, is it even an English word? Sorry. But to morph means like to change a state. So polymorphism is like the ability of an object to change forms, to change states. So an object can change its forms. So that's just like the basic explanation of polymorphism. So these are just the four main components of object-oriented programming. I believe this is clear. So I needed to explain this so that everyone has an idea. You should still read up on this on your own to understand better. Still go deep into OOP to understand better. But this is just like the basic concept of object-oriented programming. Now, to building classes in Python. I think for that, I'll just be sharing my VS Code. So I'll just be sharing my VS Code for that. Just let me know when you see my Visual Studio Code. So someone brought to my attention that anytime I share my screen, that it is not always clear. And I think I'm zooming in as much as possible, because I can't zoom in more than this. If I zoom in more than this, it will be hard for me to see it myself. Like I won't be able to type. So what I'll advise is, if you are on mobile, if you're on your phone, you should probably change to full screen on YouTube. Like just click on the full screen, so you will be able to see. But I'll try to make it bold still. So I don't think we need all this decorator code. So let's just take it out. So we are going to be building a simple class. So to create a class in Python, you use the class keyword. Very important. Now, as a naming convention, it is appropriate to start your class with capital letter or uppercase letter. So your class should always start with an uppercase letter. So let's just create a simple class called vehicle. Okay, something is wrong with my VS Code. There's something is wrong with my VS Code, so I'll just have to exit and so I'll reshare my screen now. Okay, someone said this is because I am not. Please, what is your question? I don't think I've seen. I just scrolled and I can't find your question. Sorry, what's your question? Funny. No, my VS Code is not acting right because it's loading some extensions. Some extension takes time to load. So oh yeah, I'm not sharing my screen yet, sorry. So yeah, I think it is back to normal, I guess. Take some time to load extensions and okay, so let me just create a class vehicle. What is this? Is no. Okay. Okay, so class vehicle. Yeah. Let's just pass. Now, this is a simple class in Python. It's just a simple class in Python. We are not creating an object yet. So when we create an object, we are instantiating the class because, like I explained, an object is an instance of a class. So in Python, you create an object like this. So simple. Now we have created our object. So let's print Toyota. Let's see what happens. By the way, I shouldn't really be explaining this because that is why the video resources are there. There are a couple of them on classes. So if you see, it says that it is a vehicle object. So let's print the type. Let's see what it returns. Actually, my question is, shouldn't they? Okay, so I failed to mention, we would only be taking questions regarding the current topic, the current week, and if there are no questions, probably for the previous week, I won't answer questions for the forthcoming weeks because people haven't gotten there, and the training is supposed to be for everyone, beginners and experts together. So I will not be answering questions. I will not be entertaining questions for forthcoming weeks because some people have still not gotten there, and they will most likely not understand what I am saying. So for the purpose of those who don't understand Django yet, I will not be taking Django questions. Django starts from next week. Virtual environment and Django. So let's do that. Let's be considerate. Let's consider everybody. Thank you. So, but don't worry, you can DM me your question because I get tons of Django questions already, and I even answer to some of them on the channel. But normally I am not supposed to talk about the topics that we have not yet treated, because that's the point of the whole training. So everyone can follow along at the same pace. So, but you can DM me your question and you can talk about it. So I was about running this. So a vehicle object. Now, I was about creating something just now before I started answering. Okay, I was about explaining constructors. If you are coming from a different programming language, if you're coming from Java or even JavaScript, I think Python is out of what languages I've written, I think Python is most likely just the only language out of the ones I have written that instantiates a class without the new keyword. So most times in other programming language, you have to use this new keyword to instantiate the class. So if you're coming from another programming language and you're writing Python now, you most definitely notice the difference between instantiating a class in Python and instantiating a class in another programming language, because we don't use the new keyword. So in Python, we instantiate a class by calling just the class. So we call it, it's like we are calling a function here. So we are supposed to pass in a variable here, but we are not going to do that because that takes us to constructors. Constructors help us to initialize a class. So constructor is actually what helps us to create the class and to create the object rather. So constructor, sorry, I keep biting my tongue. Constructors actually instantiates the class for us. So it initializes the class and the object for us. Why do I keep making mistake? Sorry, I am human. So constructors initializes an object for us. That is what I was trying to say. Constructors initializes objects for us. So in Python, to create a constructor, you use the init keyword. So this is called a special function. So any function or method that you see with these two underscore, I think they are called donders. Yeah, they're called donders in Python. They're called donders. So with these two underscore here, they are special functions. So init is a special function in Python, signifying a constructor. So it helps us initialize an object. So when we use this init, it shows us that this is a constructor. Our class has a constructor. So whatever parameter or arguments we pass in initializing the object here will go through the constructor. So here I type make should be what should be the make? Okay, let's give this the name. Let's give this I think there's a car called Spirit now. Yes, I think there's a car called, I don't know. I'm trying to think of a car that has, I don't know. Please, someone should give me an idea. The comment section. I actually saw, if you watch my Django tutorials on the Zuri YouTube channel, you know that I suck at naming things. I say it all the time. So I actually suck. So I don't know what name to give this car. I don't just want to give it the model. So I'm thinking of a car that has like SUV is okay. Let's just say SUV, something like that. So the make is no, Corolla is like the make, like the okay, it's Corolla. Oh yeah, okay, yeah, Corolla. Let's try Corolla. Corolla is Toyota. Am I spelling it well? Okay. So model, make, model. Model is, I don't even know. Let's just keep that for now until someone gives me an idea of something we can use as an object in the comment section. But let's just do that. I want to show. So let's say model is I don't know. I don't even want to give the model, but that's not. So now we have our constructor. Let's have a function or a method rather, not a function. Let's have a method called start. Okay, now I failed to mention, you always include this self when you create a method inside your class. So the self is pointing to that particular object itself. So always include the self in any method you create in Python. It is very important. Evil spirit, that was what I was looking for. Or looking for that. I know the thing was just keeping my head. I wanted to say evil spirit. I mean, it's a class, let's not use evil spirits. So someone one day does not just sit down like, what are these people talking about? So start define on. Okay, let's stop here for now. Let's stop here. So before we go any further, I skipped explaining some things. Not like I skipped, I wanted us to get to this point. So we have some other concepts or some other terminologies that we need to understand. We have what we call instance variables and we have what we call class variables. Now, a class variable is a variable that is shared by all instances of a class. So if all instances share a particular variable, it is a class variable. Now, class variables are defined within the class, but outside any of the class method. So they are defined inside the class, but outside the class method. These are class variables. Now, instance variables are defined. They are variables that is defined inside a method, and they belong to only that current instance of a class. So this is a current instance of a class. So if I define a variable here, starts, let's just say move forward equals go 30 kilometers. Okay, kilometer per hour. Okay, let's do that. Now, this is an instance variable because it is defined in a method. It is not a class variable. Now, if we define a variable here, I so suck at just making random things without any. Let me think of what variable to put there. Let me even check the chat if there is. Sorry. Model is for this. Oh, are we still here? So why did you not tell me? Okay. Model is Corolla. Let's do this. I don't want to call it evil spirits, but since we have no choice. No. So we'll come back to those things. Okay. So if I have a variable here called color equals red. Yeah. This is a class variable. As long as it is outside the constructor, as long as this is outside any method, it is a class variable. That means it is used by all instances of that particular class. All instances. But if it is inside a method, that means it is used by the current instance. That's why I said this self points to a particular object in the object that can be created from that class. So in this class, we can have another vehicle, another vehicle. So we can call this one okay, let's call it come on. Okay, sorry, my what's it called? Copilot. My GitHub Copilot is is making me call this so let's just go with this. Okay, so let's say Camry. Yeah, and 2020. This is another object of that class. This is another object entirely of that class. So if I am to state a particular instance variable, it will only be for an object itself, not for all objects in that class. But here, let me print this. Okay. Let me print this. Let's see if this works. Evil spirit or color prints red because obviously it's a class variable. It is used by all objects in that class that is created from that class. So if I do print so.red and I do this, and I run this, oh, sorry, pseudo color. Sorry. It still prints red to the console. But if I come here and do something like, so dot move forward now, or so dot move forward. This will not even work because it doesn't really make sense. This will even bring an error. Because exactly. So if I do something like, let's call passing the make, so dot make, because make is still an instance variable, not a class variable. Red and Toyota, or let's say model, because they are different. So yeah, this is a perfect example. So we have Corolla and Camry as the model of both, of both objects. So it shows that the instance variable model is different. So because the instance variable is supposed to be for that particular object itself, but the class variable color is for all of them, all objects of that class. So even if we give it red here and red here, even though they are different, even though they are different objects itself, they are still, why is this error here? Why do I keep calling it red and not color? I hope everyone understands the difference between an instance and a class variable. So, Mr. Livingstone, we'll come back to giving, let's just use this example for now. So I hope everyone understands the difference between the instance variable and the class variable. Instance variable is only for that particular object, and class variable can be used by all objects of that particular class. So that is just like that is just one terminology or one concept I wanted to explain. So what else? Okay, so let me just show this on how to use methods. So let's just print move forward, then return move forward. Now the reason why I am returning this is because I want to use the start method here just to demonstrate how to use methods in other methods. So stop let's see the F function. Then print so now let's see these methods in action. So the first thing we want to do is print evil spirit dot start. Okay, going. Let's start. Going 30. Why is it printed twice? Sorry, give me a second. Why is it printing twice? It's working, but why is it printing twice? How many print statements do I have? Give me a second. Let me take this guy out. Oh. I have a print statement here. And I have the print statement. So let's just keep the print statement here. Let's just keep the print statement here. Yeah. So I'm printing evil spirit here. Okay, so let's just do this. So evil spirit does start. And it's going for 30, okay, going 30 kilometers per hour. Then let's print or let's run the method evil spirits dot stop. Let's see if it works. So I believe everyone understands the logic in the code. So now the reason why it is printing here, is because it calls the method self, the start method. And once it calls the start method, everything in the start method works again. So if you want to make it just print once, just take out this guy and to print once. So going for exactly, so no more printing. So going 30 kilometer, stopping after going 30 kilometer per hour, then evil spirits dot stop. Dot on. Yep. And exactly. So this is just the basic OP concepts we have. Does everyone understand? I believe I made it easy to understand. Like I explained it to the best of my abilities, I think. So if you don't understand anything, please just let me know. So this is just it. Now, I think the last thing left for this in the topic itself was inheritance. So let's just go over inheritance. So for inheritance, I'll probably be taking a real world example, since there is no question. So just give me a second to look for So if you have questions, while I look for it, how is Python giving you second thoughts? I believe I am explaining this easy. Well, I don't know. I think I should even ask. I don't know how well I am explaining this thing. Well, I am explaining it to the best of my abilities. So, oh, you got confused when I started using print and return. Okay. So let me just take out the print. And just take out the, please, if you if you are having issues understanding this, speak up in the chat too. I can't see, I'm reading the chat, so I'll most likely get your questions. So it's just still the same thing. So I believe we have covered classes and print and return. I explained print and return in well, I think our last, no, not our last class. I shared last week, Sha. So I believe everyone should understand print and return right now. So return value, a return just gives us the return value of a particular function or method. In this case, so what is OP used for? Like I said, OP is used for building. It's a programming concept. It's used for building things too. It's used for building softwares. So you can use OP to build. Most systems out there actually use OP. Like this ATM, I don't know if there are like frameworks now for it, but most like before, ATMs uses OP as a concept. So we have things like that. So OP can be used to build, to literally model anything, to build anything. Just depends on your logic. So you can use OP to build an ATM system. You can use OP to build I think a bus like a bus library management system. You can use it to design a parking lot system, shopping carts, online shopping cart system, like online shopping system. What else? ATM, movie tickets, booking, even a game, a card game. You can use OOP. Anything that can literally be modeled using like objects, real world objects. You can use OOPs to build. So someone said, could we run this is just one more time? Okay, start and stop. You got lost. I'm I'm looking at how I can explain this without. Okay. So basically, we have not really done anything besides after explaining the class variables and the instance variables. So these are just methods. So start, stop, on. These are just methods in a class. So you call them when you instantiate the objects, or when you instantiate the class, when you create the objects. So you call the methods the way you call any other function in Python. So you call the objects, and what is inside the method will run, like just that. So okay, I want to show you something cool, I think. So I said two objects can interact with each other. So in an OOP system, basically, objects interact with each other. So now I can do something like this. Okay, I can do something like this. Evil spirits starts, then dots, so dots. I can do this. Or let me do this so that everyone can get an idea of what I'm trying to do. So none. Okay. Now this is what I'm trying to do is I am trying to combine both objects together. Basically, I was trying to just use the plus button, but I decided to make use of the F string instead. But here I'm getting none. So I believe you can guess why. It's because my method does not have any return value. Like I said last week, the return value for every function or a method is none. The default return value for every function that does not return anything is none in Python. So returns. So going 30 kilometers per hour, stopping at going 30 kilometers per hour. Now, you can have, like, maybe you are trying to build a system that like calculates something. You can make two objects interact so that calculates, you can add the plus sign and stuff, and you can make your objects interact, your methods interact with each other and things like that. So we will not be, let's not go in there. Let me make everyone understand this. I am confused. The difference between these two define. This is, like I said, this is a constructor. This is a constructor. So a constructor initializes an object. It's actually what creates our object. So anything that is passed in a constructor will be made use of our object by our objects. So I'm coming. I'm trying to understand that a lot of people are lost. So basically, that is just it. Like this init is just a construct. It is not. You don't actually use the constructor. Like you don't actually call the constructor. So when we go further, you see other special functions that are being used. For example, when we get string method and some other function, that are some other special functions. So like the init function, they are not really being used. Like you don't call them like other methods. What the init function, the init method does is that it initializes our object. So it's a constructor. So a constructor is just a special type of method that creates an object. So it prepares the object for use. It accepts arguments that are made use by our object, like I said earlier. So that's just it. So this is just the method, a normal method for our objects. So our object uses these ones. Our object uses the methods there. So there is one of the video resources that are made use of. I think it was accounting. They use, like, you calculate something. I've forgotten. Like like the exact example used itself, but it was in one of the video resources. You would see how objects interact with each other. So let me just explain this one more time. What's the difference between terminal and output? What's the difference? Output, do I even know what this output is used for? I honestly don't know. I don't think I have ever had a reason to. I know this one gives you your warnings and errors and stuff like that. I've not had the time to check what this actually does. I honestly haven't. Debug console. I don't know. I'll use this and this. I'll use terminal and programs. So why is self important in constructor? So self actually points to a particular object. So if I have this, because this is the vehicle itself, the class vehicle is a blueprint. Yeah. In itself, it is not being used. Like in itself, it is not doing anything. We only use it to create an object. We only use it to create an object. So in this case, we are using it to create two cars. Yeah. Now, the self points to a particular object. So it points to the current, okay, think of it this way. It points to the current object or the object itself that is being created from that class. So when I have, when I do something like, okay, so here I am trying to, I have the make, yeah, model, and yeah. I can use it in any of my methods as long as I am inside that class. So I just need to come here. Okay, in this stop now, I can just print self dot yeah. And I'll get here. So I remember one of my projects back then. Let me even see if I can pull it up. I remember one of my projects back then. When I was in school, it was supposed to build probably do machine learning or planning to do machine learning. You most likely hear of naive-Bayes classifier. So it is used to model something, to predict. It's used for prediction and to model something. So I was supposed to model if something was actually a boy or a girl, if a person that like I have like a given data, so there's like a set of data, and based on the data you do some calculation, some statistics, some mean mode and whatever, and at the end it is supposed to tell you if this person is a girl based on calculation. And I used OOPs to build it. I think this was around 2018 or so. So let me just pull it. Let me copy the code. So just the OOP parts anyways. So this is the code itself. It's long and annoying. So let me just show you how I use some of the things here. This code is a bit ugly in my eye now that I'm looking at it. So let's see where can I start explaining, because I want to explain how you use how we used self. Why did I even use parentheses here? This is not even supposed to be here. Anyways, that's it. You use this parentheses if you want to inherit from another class. So let's say I have another class that I want to inherit from. I will just pass in the class there, but we will get to that in a bit. Let's just understand the basics. So okay, no, this is actually a bad example to use to explain. Oh, this is a bad example to use to explain. I can't even start thinking about what that code does anymore. But basically, self points to a particular object, like the current object. So with self, you have an access, you have access to every instance variable, or else can make use of all the variables. So the self just points to a particular object. So don't pay no heed to like how the self is being used. Just know that when you create the model, you always use self. You always just pass in self. Just take note of that. When you create the model, you always pass in self. When you create a method, rather, you always pass in self and the constructor. So anytime you pass in a variable and you want to have like an instance, anytime you pass in a variable as an argument to the constructor, because here we are actually passing the variable as an argument to the constructor. So anytime you pass a variable as an argument and you really need to create an instance variable off of those arguments that you created, you need to like make it like call self dots then. So it shows that it is an instance variable, and anytime you are going to be making use of it, you would most likely be calling self dots. You get. So that's just it. Have you applied any of the other principles apart from inheritance? Yes, in other programming languages, I have. In Python itself, not really. Because most times I write Django. So with Django, things are actually very easy for you. Things are actually very easy for you with Django. So most times it's only when you have to build something quiet, you need like a like deep understanding of OOPs and stuff like that. That's when you most likely be making use of this. But in Python, it's only inheritance that I've made use of. But in other languages, like in Java, because I've written Java too. So in Java, most times encapsulation, I think like you just do it because you most times you always have to specify your methods public or private. Yeah, if I'm not right, if I'm not wrong. Does not have written Java, but yeah, you always have to call your methods public or private. So in JavaScript, can't even remember if I've used encapsulation. The thing is, I don't use raw OOP that much, except to need calls for it. I could always just read up on how to do those things if I ever really need it. So most times it's just inheritance that I make use of. But I think for the sake of this session, like this office hours, I would probably show how to use others like the abstraction, encapsulation, and polymorphism with suitable examples. So have you, okay, you write all this code for me since we were, oh, that code. You really don't want to know what I went through to write that code. I don't even know how I wrote that code, to be honest. I think I had like a deadline and I was lost until I watched the video tutorial and I had like an inspiration to write that code. I think I finished writing that code around like 3 a.m. Like I can remember how I was just writing that code on my bed that morning. It was not a funny experience. And I still got F in the course for anybody that wanted to know. It was an elective anyways. Um uh did you study this? We are supposed to be talking Python here, please. But yeah, I started I studied computer science, so I started with Python. Yeah. So that was how I started learning Python. Yeah, that's just it. So let me see if I can explain. Let me see if I can explain this. Oh yeah, I got everything. It was an elective anyways. It was not a compulsory course. And that was why it pained me that I went through all those stress for that assignment. It was a very annoying elective like that. One statistic course like that. Oh, that was just it. So yeah, I was going to explain this. I'm looking for how to explain this that everyone, you know what? I think I will just go online and check for a suitable example because these are all things that I am just creating from the top of my head. So I think I found one. So just give me a second. I found one just now. Okay, yeah, I found one. So yeah, print. If I don't like using. So by the way, there are different ways to format in Python. I just like the printf because it's easy and everyone can read through. She was afraid to come out. Okay. Why am I even having this error? Statements must be. I don't know why I was stressing myself. So looks like this code they used Python 2.7. Let me just clean the code up and explain. 1, 2, 3, 4. Other people. Oh, okay. So this is an employee. Let me retrieve it first, please. I'm not retrieve it. Come on, base class for employee. Employee count is 0. Okay. Here. Okay. Okay. Let me. Okay. I think I have an idea what this does. Okay, so Enny would obviously be the first employee because he's the owner of the company. Then so we have name and salary. Come on. I don't do that. I do 8 figures or 9 figures. So yeah, let's just print some. Okay, employee dot any dot display display count. Let's display count. So I will explain what this does in a bit. Danny. Danny cannot be richer than me now. No. Okay. So okay, so exactly, you know the vibes. Okay, so let's go by this. So this is a simple employee class, and we have two methods. We have the display count method and the display employee method. So the display count method just prints the total number of employees we have, and the display employee, I'm not okay. Let me show what display employee does. It shows the current employee and the salary of the employee. So in this class, we have a class variable called employee count. And that class variable is incremented by 1 every time the object is initialized, or whenever a new object is initialized. So anytime we create an object, so that is why I said the constructor initializes. So anything inside the constructor, okay, I didn't mention this. So anything inside the constructor we run first before any parts of the class runs. Like anything inside the init method will always run first. So when we initialize an object, when we instantiate a class, our init method runs, and anytime it runs, it increments the employee count by 1. So let's do this. Self should or employee count should work. Total employee is 0. Perfect example. Perfect example. So, okay. Now, awesome. Okay. So now, if you noticed, when I used self, the employee counts, we still get 0. Although it's supposed to be 1, I'm coming. Wait, give me a second. Okay, I want to do something. Give me a second. I want to do something. So display employee, let's take this out for now. I want to see something. Any is not defined, okay. That should be a code runner error. Exactly. Okay. I don't want that information. I want to save the salary. Okay. One. Okay. So now, if you notice here, when we used self.employee count, we can see that it still gave our self.employee count still gave us 0. It's giving us 0 here because obviously we did not define it first. So if you define self.employee count, or I don't want to spoil that. Total employee. Oh, I know it was supposed to work before. It was supposed to work. This is why it's not working. I still have. This should still keep working. 1, 1. I knew it was supposed to be 1. Okay, I knew it was supposed to be 1. Here is giving us just 1, even though B is in the company, the head of obviously, and Danny, we have 2 employees. We want to get the total number of employees, but it's still giving us 1. Now that is because, like I meant, rules are used by all instances of that particular. Please tell me everyone can hear me. I went off for a while. My internet disappeared. Please tell me everyone can hear me, please. I hope everyone can hear me. My internet just disappeared for a while, or Zoom logged me out. Okay, awesome. Can everyone see my screen? Yes, thank you. Okay. So I was explaining the difference between a class variable. I'm sharing my screen now, so you should be able to see my screen. Okay, awesome. Okay, awesome. So I was explaining the difference between a class variable and an instance variable in this example. Now, with the class variable, we get it is used by all instances of that class. So when this constructor is run here and here, the class variable still maintained its value. So if I create another variable here and I call it, or I call the person Livingstone. Obviously it's Python, so we have to use employee Livingstone. How much? Let's just give him $1,000. It is good enough, I think. So anytime the constructor is running, so someone said, what's the difference between using this and using a dictionary? A class, an object is different. A dictionary is just a data type that stores data. A dictionary is just a data type, it stores data. So you can store data of different data types. You can store a string, an integer, a sequence. It can even store a function inside a dictionary. But a class is, or an object is like a real world representation of like a real object that does things. So you can carry out functionalities and stuff like that, have method. A class, an object has method and attributes, behaviors. So a method is a behavior of an object. So there are two different things, two entirely different things. So now, anytime a constructor is run, yeah, like I said, this method runs, or anytime you create an object, rather, this method runs. Now, in this method, we are creating two instance variables, name and salary. An instance variable is just for that particular object. It is not used by another object. But now, every object uses this class variable here. And that is why we get an increment when we display counts. We get like the correct count of the number of employees in that particular, like that are modeled from that class. You get, so because every one of them is using this class variable. So anytime anytime I create the object any, it comes here, it creates name and salary. Then it checks, okay, my employee count is 0. 0 plus 1 is 1. Now, then, because obviously Python runs code line by line. We all know that. So it comes to line 17. Oh, it says that we are creating an object. This is, oh, this constructor. Okay, let's go. Let's initialize this object. It comes here. It creates name. Okay, we are passing Danny and a salary of 100,000, I guess. So it's instant, it creates the variable 100,000, the instance variable 100,000. Then it comes here, employee.employee count. What is the count of the employee? Instead of getting 0, we are getting 1 at the point which Danny is being created or is being instantiated, because the employee count is no longer 0 but 1. Enny has already made this constructor run. Enny has already changed this class variable. So Danny gets a hold of this class variable, and Danny sees that it is 1. Danny also has the power to change. So Danny has the power to change this variable, and Danny changes it from 1 to 2. Now, Livingstone too is not contented with the fact that we have just 2 employees. He also wants to be an employee of the company. I come, okay, my name is Livingstone and my salary is is that 400,000 or 40,000? So it comes here and it uses the salary here, and it sees that, oh, we have 2 employees, so plus myself, making 3. So anytime we run it, so you see total employees, not Livingstone itself that is showing us the display count, it is still Enny. So Enny, because before Enny runs here, we have already created 3 objects. So the constructor has run 3 times. So Enny, when we call the display count method, it gets the total number of employees. It gets the total number of employees in that class, because it's a class variable and all of them has changed it. It's the total number of employees and it displays. So apparently this network has been going off and on. It does not want us to finish that. I think we have just 10 minutes left. So fair play to us, I guess. So Yeah, I was saying, so what if that is where something like encapsulation comes in? Because now this is even a class variable and every object in that particular class has an access to it. But what if, because we can still also change the method, we can have access to the method. We can have access to the method. So Enny has the method of display counts. Livingstone can use Enny's display counts. But what if we want to actually make just Enny use display count or display employee, and we don't want any other object to use it, or we don't want any object of another class? Because now when we are inheriting from a class to another class, or when we are creating another class entirely, we can still even make use of this employee class. We have not talked about inheritance, so I'll most likely be talking about that tomorrow. We have our class from 4 to 6, so I'll most likely be talking about inheritance tomorrow. But what if another class, the object of another class, is trying to access this method? That is where encapsulation comes in. We can make these methods private so that it is only accessible by objects of this particular class. So I hope it is a bit clear. We have not seen it into play yet. We have not gone into them, but I most likely will be going into them tomorrow in greater details. But that is like the idea of encapsulation. We don't want just anybody to be able to access the method of our class. So we want to hide them so that only objects of that particular class can access a given method. Now, abstraction is just the fact that we only want other objects able to, we only want them to have what they need. The things that are useless to them, we don't want them to be able to see or access them. So that object needs display counts, because if you are creating an object now from or we have, okay, let's say our class, this is our class now here. Now we have an object from another class that wants to use the display count, because the object just wants. Okay, so Zoom keeps logging me out. I don't know why. I think this is a sign that our class is going, we are rounding up soon. So that's just the very idea of it. So abstraction will just be making sure that display count is only accessible to that object, and display employee will not be accessible to that object because it only needs display counts. So this is like the very idea of how OOP is being used. So I believe everyone here, wow, we have 21 people now watching. Before we were about 50. The class that boring or that hard to understand. Everyone ran. But I would love for everyone to watch this class again and most likely research on their own. If you are clear about something, you can send me a DM or you can just ask in the channel. And I most likely will be directing you to a link explaining it better than I would. But the thing is, you most likely will not get OOPs immediately. I didn't get OOP. In fact, if I tell you when I actually got the full grasp, not like I even have full grasp on OOP. Not like I even understand OOP that much, to be honest, because I still keep learning. You don't have access to Slack. That is reach out to coordinator. I don't. How don't you have access to Slack at this point? Are you enrolled for this cohort? If you are not, then you shouldn't have access to Slack. But if you are, I don't think you wouldn't have access to Slack at this point. But you wouldn't get OOP. I don't expect you to get OOP immediately. I would be surprised if you got it immediately. Actually, you shouldn't get it immediately. You should go and research so that you learn more. Even me till today, I still keep reading up on OOP and still reading up on the concept and stuff like that. So you just need to keep understanding, just understand the basics. That's just it. Just understand the basics, and every other thing will fall into place. Once you understand the basics, you can literally understand any other thing. Just understand. That's why if you notice, if for those who have done like the task week 3 task, I had more of theoretical questions than actual code questions, because you need to understand the concept. A lot of it is concept. That's why when I started the class, I first needed to explain some concepts so that you would understand. So OP is more about understanding a concept than writing code, because once you understand the concept, you can definitely write your code, because it's not hard. You will just be visualizing it, and what you don't understand, you can quickly just Google up and understand and read up on it. So yes, a class is literally important in everything you do. Don't worry, when we get to Django, you'd see the importance of classes. Literally everything you do in Django is a class. Like, you use classes, but it's not like you need full in-depth knowledge of OOP. You just need to know how OOP works. You can, because there are like things like methods that do something in Django, so you can understand them by just seeing them, because you see them at work. But literally everything you do in programming is classes. Even if you are doing front end and you're writing React, and literally we have class based component. Although from later, I think from React 16 or React 13, they've started taking out class, like they are going into function based components more, but you still people write classes. That's like you need to understand classes as a programmer. You need to understand classes. You probably don't need an in-depth, deep knowledge of it, but you should understand OOP. It is important. Django is Python. Okay, the class is ending soon. Django is Python. Django is Python's framework. It's easy, don't worry, it's not as hard as, in fact, or I feel I teach Django better than I teach Python. Like Python. You would most likely understand Django better if I teach it than if I'm teaching Python. For Python, I kind of brute force my way teaching it, because it's a bit, you need to understand, you need to read up on. But for Django, it's free flowing. At least for me, it's free flowing. So I can literally read and write Django with my eyes closed, because it's easy. It's easy, so I can teach it better and you most likely understand Django. So Django is not as hard as like the normal Python, I feel, but that's just it. So thank you all for joining today's class. For those that stuck with us to the end, I hope you would keep on going through OOP. We have another class tomorrow from 4 to 6. Please do well to join. Have a nice day. Enjoy your evening, and we see you tomorrow. Bye.